welcome. Would like to call this meeting to order, May 2022, San Francisco Airport Community Roundtable Work Plan Subcommittee meeting at 10 a.m. We are meeting via teleconference, and joining us today are staff to the Roundtable, Angela Montes, Roundtable Administrative Secretary, Doreen Stockdale, Interim Roundtable Coordinator, Jean Rindale, Technical Consultant to the Roundtable from HMMH. We also have with us Lisa Osaza, Deputy Director, Planning and Building Department, County of San Mateo. I don't know if Linda is here. Let me see.
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning.
You okay? Fantastic. Linda Wallen, Senior Legislative Aide to Supervisor Dave Pine, and Bert Ganong from the SFO Aircraft Noise Office. I'm not sure if we have anyone from the FAA with us today. I don't see anyone. Doreen, anyone from the FAA?
No, I don't see anyone.
Okay, thank you. At this point, Ms. Montes will explain how the public can participate in today's meeting, and we will open public comments on items not on the agenda.
Thank you, Chairman Hindi. For those attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the raised hand feature in order to organize any public comments. During the general public comment period and for each item on the regular agenda, we will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raise hand feature to speak on that agenda item. For those joining by phone, you may press *9 to indicate your desire to speak and then *6 to unmute your microphone. We will prompt you and inform you when you may begin speaking, and you will have 2 minutes. Please note that members of the public must wait for the prompt in connection with each agenda item. For example, you cannot raise your hand later in the meeting if you wish to speak sooner. You cannot raise your hand now if you wish to speak later in the meeting, excuse me. Written comments that were submitted in advance will be addressed by staff during discussion of the appropriate agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montes. And now we will move on to roll call. Ms. Stockdale, would you please proceed with the roll call?
Yes. Chair Hindi.
Here.
Member O'Connell.
Here.
And Member Schneider.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you.
Also present are Member Taylor, just so you know. Thank you.
Fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And now I would like to move on to public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Is there any written comments, Ms. Montes?
Thank you, Chairman Hindi. We did not receive any written public comment for items not on the agenda. And at the moment, I do not see any virtual hands raised for this item, Chair. Okay,
thank you. So next item, we will now move on to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda, which includes item 2, a resolution adopting finding for remote meetings as declared by the governor. Staff will read any written comments and allow members of the public to speak. Ms. Montes, do we have any members of the public that would like to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Again, we did not receive any written public comments, and I do not see any virtual hands raised from members of the public. I do now, however, see a hand raised from Member Schneider, but none from the public, Chair.
Okay, Member Schneider, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. I was only going to make a motion to approve, but I had one question. City of Millbrae is probably going to go back to hybrid meetings in the fall. And given that SFO Roundtable meets at the Jacuzzi Room, if the full Roundtable could, and in fact, the working group also met at City of Millbrae, just give us an idea of when you want to come back, because these other rooms we have to plan for hybrid meetings too. So otherwise, motion to approve.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Definitely will be in touch with the City of Millbrae, and we'll keep you posted as we move forward if we need to do a hybrid meetings moving forward. Okay, we got a motion from Member Schneider. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second that. Terry O'Connell.
Thank you, Member O'Connell. With that, Ms. Stockdale, roll call, please.
Chair Hindi.
Yes.
Member O'Connell.
Yes.
And Member Schneider.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on, we're gonna go ahead and move on to item number 3, which is the work plan and the budget discussion. The roundtable bylaws state that the roundtable shall develop and implement an annual work program to analyze and evaluate the impacts of aircraft noise in affected community, and to make recommendation to appropriate agencies regarding implementation of effective noise mitigation actions. At its December 2020 meeting, the membership approved a 4-year strategic plan covering fiscal year 2020 through 2024, and a work plan for fiscal 2020-2021. While normally the work plan would be updated every year, the process has been delayed due to the pandemic. Therefore, in April last year, the membership agreed to carry over the fiscal 2021 work plan as approved to fiscal 2021-2022, since it has been recently adopted. The annual roundtable budget and work program areas are based on revenue provided by all roundtable members. Also, the membership approved at their October 7, 2020 meeting, the roundtable budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. Work completed at this time included an audit and reconciliation of the roundtable trust fund and a 4-year budget projection through fiscal year 2023-2024. The adopted 2021-22 budget and the draft fiscal year 2022-2023 budget are provided for reference in the staff report and the packet. Staff will provide more information at the June meeting on the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. Now, Doreen, I'll toss it over to you to go over the work plan times and their status, please.
Okay, perfect. I did just want to point out that the current goals in the work plan mirror the 6 goals in the strategic plan. So they are, the goal and the action item are exactly the same as in the current strategic plan. So goal 1 is to review and comment on aircraft procedures. Focus on all aircraft procedures, including arrivals, departures, and ground-based procedures in and out of SFO. The current work plan items are for the roundtable technical working group to evaluate the night and hush departures, modify proposals for nighttime abatement regarding location, level of flight paths, nighttime hours, and environmental review process. And that item is complete. The second work item is working with the technical consultant and the roundtable to evaluate options for nighttime arrivals for runway 28 right and left, and that is ongoing.
Doreen,
And-
may I stop you for
Absolutely.
a second? Sorry to interject, but
No.
let's kind of take the first one, the goal 1 on the night hush.
Okay.
I would like to kind of open it for discussion that this is not really completed 100%. That we had, as you know, we had worked with the FAA and SFO, and it is now 1 to 5. But we still have an ongoing work on this item, which is basically continue to monitor FAA's progress on the suggested additional hours. I wonder if any members or staff has any comments. Member Schneider.
Sorry, Chair, I can't tell if my hand goes up or not. I would agree with you, Chair, that it is still ongoing, but it could be reduced and dropped down if these are in order of priority 5, 6, 7, for example, because it's more, we wait and see what they do. And when they do something, then we comment on.
That's a good point as far as priority is concerned, but definitely it's an ongoing, and I'm glad to see that you are in agreement. Thank you. Anything else? I see Member Perkins, or Brian Perkins from Congresswoman Spears' office. Brian?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out that at least with respect to that item, there's going to be an ongoing need to monitor what happens with respect to FAA implementation. So in a sense, it's an everyday item. And so I don't know exactly how that's going to happen, probably in cooperation with the airport, certainly. But it is a high priority to make sure that the FAA follows through on what it's promised. And in fact, there'll be a communication back on a regular basis in the event that it turns out that the FAA isn't following through, because backsliding or having shortcuts taken on that particular path is a real probability.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. Thank you for your comments. And I think we, as a roundtable, we definitely need to make sure that we continue. I think FAA mentioned that they will give us updates, but in case we don't receive them in a timely manner, at least to our satisfaction, that we should prompt the FAA to provide updates. Where are they in the process? Okay, Member Schneider, I see your hand up again.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where this might fit, but, and who knows with whomever will be our new congressperson, what staff they will have. But we have been blessed at having both Kathleen and Brian, who are well-versed in these issues, working with us. We may want to add to our work plan that we're going to need some time to brief whomever the new staff will be with our new congressperson. And I don't know where that might fit here, but it's critical that they be as good as Brian and Kathleen.
We can only hope. Thank you for your comment, and I definitely agree with you that we have been blessed with the resources that we have from Congresswoman Spear. But definitely, as a roundtable, it is upon us to make sure that we reach out and get them up to speed, whomever those staff members are.
Right, I just don't know where in the goal. It's going to take some time for next year to do that.
Okay, so you're suggesting basically, I think it's in general, it's not just going to be the night hush. You want to update, you want to bring them up to speed on everything that we have been doing, right?
Absolutely, Chair. Yeah, that's why I said I just was looking at goal 1. Maybe we need a goal A that is just to brief new staff.
Understood. I think that's a good suggestion as well. So that I think that would be probably take most of the time rather than what we have been working on night hush, which I think for a very short period of time, I would imagine once we identify who the staff members that going to be addressing or going to be assigned for airport noise, we could bring them up to speed and have the channels of communication open.
And probably would require, I don't know if they have to be publicly noticed meetings. You know, one way the chairs meet with them and try to bring them up to speed. I don't know, but it would take some staff time and it would take some member time.
Yeah, and so definitely initially, I think it would have to be, you know, the leadership of the roundtable reaching out along with staff, and then obviously somebody will be assigned to the roundtable, so they will be part of the public meetings. But I don't think those need to happen. At least the initial contact and the initial briefing should happen in public meetings. We could do those privately.
Okay. Just in terms of a goal versus budget and staff time on it to make sure that we allocate. And I think, again, this is off topic from night hush, but that's why I see it sort of as a goal A. It would be great to get our new assembly person staff on board, especially because they're Title 21. And we've kind of not been doing much with Title 21, but we really need to.
Okay, so let me hear from staff if they have any comments on how much time that entails, and if they have any suggestions, how do we go about that? My thought is we initiate contact with the congresswoman's or congressman's office, and we'll take it from there. But let me hear from staff or anyone else.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sam, that the first step should definitely be to reach out to that person when they're in place.
Okay. All right. And as far as time, Doreen, do you have any kind of idea? I mean, I think the initial contact wouldn't be that much time consuming. I mean, obviously we need to provide information, and I would imagine Brian and his team will be providing information also to the newly elected congressperson.
Correct. Yeah, I wouldn't think it would take that much time.
Brian, would that be the case?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we're going to brief the people on all of the issues that are before the office. And obviously the roundtable has been a major investment in the work that's been done so far is, as I point out, ongoing. So it'll be something that has to get thoroughly briefed, and there probably would be somebody appointed to the roundtable given the amount of effort that's been done so far in this office. And given the fact that, the issue is basically, is fundamentally a federal issue. And so, yes, happy to brief the incoming staff and to accept the staff of the roundtable as well, helping us. And of course, leadership helping us brief the incoming staff.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. No, definitely. So that would be, I think, the course of action. Brian and his team will brief the incoming staff members and the new congressperson's office. And we as a roundtable will also initiate contact and kind of start building those relationships. And then obviously they'll be joining us to the meetings and giving us their input and the congressperson's priorities. Okay, very well. Doreen, you were talking about B, the nighttime 28 left and 28 right. I'm wondering, I was out of the loop, Jean or Doreen, if you could kind of update me as to what has happened with that, or where are we going with it? Because I have some thoughts on that item as well.
Jean, do you have something on that?
I am not recalling where we're at with that. I'm wondering if Bert might have any recollection. Sorry to put you on the spot, Bert.
Okay.
No, that's fine. Sorry, I was just getting off a call from a caller. Let's see. Evaluate the options for nighttime arrivals on runway 28 right, 28 left. Mean departures? Because we typically arrive on the 28 right, 28 left.
I'm not sure.
And if it would be runway 10 departures for the nighttime. That's
This
been
does, Bert, I just went on to the actual work plan and it is exactly as written here. So nighttime arrivals on 28 right and left. Not
Okay,
sure.
well,
I'm not, and that's
do that.
right. Well, that's what I'm saying is I'm not remembering what the options were for those arrivals.
The only thing I can think of is maybe offset, and we're been working with the FAA and they're improving their numbers.
Okay.
Maybe that was it. Thanks, Bert.
So wouldn't working with technical consultants on arrivals on 28 left and right be part of the GBAS program?
They are, but not for this aspect. Well, I mean, this is one aspect of it, because most of our GBAS arrivals are to 28 right, 28 left, although we did set up, as you recall, some 10 arrivals and the 19 arrivals we're looking at as well.
I would suggest these are separate, and I think Bert might be right with the offset arrivals. Again, I'd have to go back and look as to, where
I'm
this came
pretty
from,
certain
but-
it's just the offsets, yeah. Or down the bay, yeah.
Yeah, so I would think we probably two thoughts I have on this. One is make sure or pursue having 28 right being the sole runway used if there's only single approach at nighttime. Eliminate 28 left, obviously, with the consideration whether or safety requirement, which is basically weather related, should be really 28 right if it's a single approach. But more than that, I think we should probably expand that a little bit to create comprehensive focus on all airplane actions which negatively affect airplane noise impact on residents. So it would include the 28 left and right, but also flight operation. Like, for example, we were addressing the night hash, which is one of those procedures at night that affected our residents. Perhaps we could expand this to look into other procedure at nighttime that we could figure out how we could lessen the noise. Bert, a question. I know we're not in the technical group at this point, but out of curiosity, do you see why 28 left would be used at nighttime if it was a single approach?
Well, we've talked with the FAA about possibility of closing 28 left at night, and they said no, we can't do that. That's a safety issue. We need to be able to have both runways. Now, when we pursued that with them, they agreed that they will brief that more, and they have been. We've been tracking those numbers, and they've been increasing. At the last I heard from Lauren, I think was our new goal was somewhere around the 38-40% right now. And I said, well, why don't we try to do 50% offsets? And so while it's a little lofty at the moment, we're looking for it.
Okay, we'll pursue it obviously on the technical working group, but I think that's definitely an area that we could improve on, and we could, with the FAA's cooperation, we could definitely make progress. Do you agree, Bert?
Well, I agree, yes, because we have been making progress.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so anyone has any thoughts on this item? Expanding basically the nighttime noise work that we do, lessening the nighttime noise.
Member Schneider's hand is raised.
Oh, okay, sorry, Member Schneider, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
No, not a problem. Goal 1 includes ground-based procedures, but the sub-goals, none of them are the types of noise that impact the close-in communities on that. Is it a possibility to add a goal here that at least reflects the differences? And I know that Bert has talked about trying to encourage more airlines to take off before the magic 10 p.m. hour. And when Director Sotiro talks about the new airlines coming on board or coming to SFO, he is very good at saying, well, they're going to try to leave at 5 o'clock at night or 3 o'clock in the afternoon or things like that. So to me, in this category, or similarly, is the type of noise that comes, and the worst is, of course, between 11 and 5 o'clock in the morning. Although the 6 to 7 o'clock hour can be pretty intense. But if you're still asleep, you can sleep through that. So just, if we've got it in the top goal, there should be a sub goal that matches.
Okay. Anybody has any thoughts? I'm not seeing any hands. Anybody has any objection? Okay, thank you, Member Schneider. We'll add it.
And I'll contact you to get what kind of verbiage you would like to add for that goal.
Sure. And I'll put on my thinking cap. I have nothing stunningly amazing at the moment.
Perfect.
All right, Doreen, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No,
Proceed.
this is perfect. Going through them one by one is perfect. The next one is working with a technical consultant. The roundtable will evaluate the options for redirecting southern arrivals, which is the Surfer and the Pirate Star. I have that as ongoing. The FAA will be briefing the roundtable at the June 1st meeting regarding Surfer. So I wasn't sure what else you all would, do you just want it to roll over, or do you want to update it in any way, shape, or form?
Okay, let me open it up. Anyone has any thoughts on this? And if anyone was on the working group in the past and is present today, if you could kind of give us some background as to what was really the objective when we say working with the technical group to evaluate for redirect sudden arrival, has any work been done, or what is it? What was the goal of doing this?
My understanding was that, here, I'll share my video too. My understanding was that the Metroplex had the result of shifting the surfer a little bit. And it was to try to put it back to where it was. And Doreen, I know you've been in conversations recently too. So if I got that wrong, I apologize. But I think it was about trying to see if there's a way to adjust Surfer to be more reflective of what it was pre-Metroplex. And Bert, also, I know you're involved with this as well. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not, because this was before my time. I think it was Justin was involved with setting this work plan. I was not. So.
Yeah, and that's what the FA is wanting to meet with the roundtable on June 1st. They're gonna, oh, what's that thing called? It's the previously amended Surfer. The previously developed amended Surfer is still on the IFP gateway. They did pitch it last year to the congressional offices, Spear, SU, and Panetta. All three rejected it. And so the FAA had left it on the IFP gateway. As it sits right now, it may not even meet criteria to be valid. So the FAA just basically wants to take it off the books. So it will be removed following the meeting on June 1st.
So would there be any work for us on this if that is the case?
Well, that's a question if you'd like to assume that. And it may be a sticky thing for the roundtable to touch based on the Palo Alto feelings that they've been expressing quite well at our meetings lately. I'm speaking a little out of turn here, so please don't hold me to this right now. We're recommending to the director, in whether he chooses to accept it or not, that we deal with Surfer while we're dealing with GBAS. And working the two together would actually be a good thing for the GBAS. We would be able to offer better improvement in that area. But right now that's still to be decided by the director.
So Bert, it's interesting. You said that the way the procedure is put on the IFP gateway, it's not technically feasible, I think is kind of what you alluded to. So that does say, is there something else that could be feasible? And one of the things you just mentioned, Bert, is it may be feasible through GBAS to try to modify that procedure.
We're willing to look at it, yeah, definitely.
Right. And so that does, Chair Hindia, I'm just raising that because that does open the opportunity, perhaps, if you will, of making a different option available, right, for Surfer. So maybe we do leave this as ongoing, or if, you know, what we hear from the FAA is it's closed and we don't want to continue, we could decide then. But I don't know that we have enough information at this point to close this, and probably just leave it as ongoing if it's still of interest to the roundtable.
Yeah, definitely. If based on what I've heard from Bert at this point, to be determined. So my suggestion is to leave it ongoing, and if we need to, based on the development, we could come back and revisit.
Okay.
Anyone has any thoughts on this?
Would it be possible to add in the title something about GBAS? So working with technical consultants of the roundtable to evaluate Southern arrivals, Surfer and Pirate in conjunction with GBAS. So that we're adding the GBAS in there, and that might be a result. So it would be, you know, a goal.
I don't know if we want to commit that at this moment. That's the reason I said we need to hold off on the GBAS component at this moment. We may be able to add it in afterwards, but that's where it's going to come from.
Isn't GBAS going to take up quite a bit of our time in the next year?
No, I don't think so. Because the procedures are going to the gateway. It'll be at least a year before we see anything from those. So it'll kind of go dormant for a bit. And then, but we'll still be working the Group 2A, Group 2B for 3 years out. And waiting to see what the Group 1 innovative procedures once they get into place based on the IFP gateway.
So you know, I would love to not hear about GBAS and our Palo Alto problems for a year, but I'm just not sure that's going to happen.
I would bet no.
Well, my thought on this though is going back to the Surfer and Star. You know, one tool is GBAS. It's not the only tool. So I don't know if we want to limit that to here. We could say, you know, something about it as a possibility through GBAS or something, but not tie it, because we do have other action work plan items that deal directly with GBAS. So I don't know that we need to do that here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's best.
So do we want to take that out there, my little comment?
Dawn.
That's my recommendation. Like I said, it's one possibility. It's not the only possibility. So I don't think we want to limit it to what GBAS could do for us there.
And Bert, if I heard you correctly, even if the director were to kind of say, go ahead and explore Surfer or GBAS enhancement or improvement, that will not be coming this year. We will not see anything this year, or that could be different than the procedures that you said they're going to have to be
Like
done.
I said, I was speaking out of turn, but
Got it.
I don't know what the director has up his sleeve. He'll get the briefing, same as you, next week. He may make a decision then. He may wait to discuss it with management above me and then announce it at the roundtable. So
Okay.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, well, given that we don't have enough information at this point on this, I would leave it alone, Terry, if you don't mind. And then based on what we will hear later from SFO and the director, we could definitely adjust. You okay with that, Terry?
Sure. No, I'm just throwing my 2 cents in.
And most appreciated.
Okay. Is there anything else that anyone wants to discuss under
Linda, I see Linda's hand is up.
Hi, thank you, Chair. I was debating whether to speak up, but perhaps it's relevant for the Surfer point, which is just a reminder that the work plan theoretically is to help guide staff and the members to help prioritize how we use resources during the year. And I would just observe that the roundtable in the past year has not really spent a lot of time on Surfer, and we certainly haven't been evaluating any options. Maybe we're monitoring what's happening with Surfer, such as it concerns. I mean, eventually it will concern GBAS, but just in general, but that has not been a priority. And I think given the focus on night hush and also on the 28 right and left arrivals, I just query whether this is a priority or whether you want to rank them somehow within this. I mean, it just doesn't rise to the same level for the membership that night hush and 28 right left do. It's just a thought.
So to make it a lower priority?
or something, but I don't think we've, like, it's not accurate to say we will evaluate options. We haven't looked at Surfer in a long time, and to the extent that we do, it's to monitor. And yes, the FAA will be making a presentation on it, but I don't know that members are going to get involved in evaluating options. Or maybe they are, but I'm just pointing that out for discussion.
I could add on to that. I think what I'm hearing you say, Linda, is that we haven't really done anything on this year. And what's the likelihood that we're actually going to do something next year? Because what this work plan is supposed to do is guide us into exactly what we're going to be doing over this next year. And so Linda's raising the possibility that we didn't get to it last year. We probably won't get to it this year. So should it remain on?
Well, I guess the question is, do we want to get, maybe
Do
want is
we
the wrong
want to
word,
get
but
to
do
it?
we
Right.
want to prioritize it? If yes, then it should be here. If it's more of a monitoring thing,
Right.
you know, it's just the language so that we can be true to what is in this work plan.
Yeah,
And-
go ahead, Linda.
I was just say it's really up to the members in this committee to decide that, but I'm just raising it as a question, as an observation.
No, thank you. And that's really where my question was. My observation is we have not done anything in the past year, and that's why I asked if anyone is aware of anything that has been done. Number one. Number two, to what level, even if we were to get engaged, set aside the priorities that we have above it, what would that be? What is our impact at this point? Let's see what the FAA says, but I totally agree that the priorities that we have on the the arrival 28 right, 28 left, in addition to what I have proposed at adding even more procedures that impact our membership, and then the monitoring of night hash. So I'd like to hear from anyone else if somebody has any thoughts or comments.
I would say
Sorry, go ahead.
I would hope that we move the item down in the priority list. I don't want to give the impression that we've just dropped it out of spite from the old work plan to the new, but that it's not given priority. Would that be appropriate?
Okay, thank you. Let me hear from Member Taylor, and then I'll come back to answer that, Terry.
Thank you, Chair Handy, and I really appreciate the conversation about Surfer. I am definitely supportive of keeping it on the list and being mindful of the capacity of our staff, but I do not want it to disappear. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia, for sharing that. Anyone else before I get back to Terry's suggestion? Okay, I don't see anyone else hand raised. So yeah, I tend to agree. I'm not suggesting, or I'm not in favor of kind of removing it altogether. However, I think as far as priority, given what we have and the amount of work that has not been done on it in the past year, and I don't anticipate really our involvement this year. Let's see what the FAA will brief us on June 1st at the meeting, and then we'll take it from there. But yes, I'm okay to keep it in there. And that's, I believe, what Terry and what Cecilia has suggested.
Yeah, so my recommendation would be maybe to change the wording a bit then, because I don't know that you don't expect to be working with the technical consultant necessarily, but you will be monitoring and still continuing to push for maybe options to the Surfer and Pirate. So maybe some slight word change would help. That way you don't need to necessarily make it less of a priority, but just saying that you're not maybe going to do much more than just, monitor and determine whether there are possibilities there or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that kind of goes to Linda's point, which is, planning for our resources and our staff and consultant work. So thanks, Jean. All right. Does that look good to everyone? Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. All right. we could move on unless someone has any more comments on this item. All right, Doreen, go for it.
Goal 2 is to address airport operations noise, abate noise impacts to surrounding communities from airport and airline operations. The action item is the roundtable will identify noise impacts and provide recommendations to SFO Noise Abatement Office for outreach to airlines and the FAA, as well as to the airport director to address in the airport development and noise action plans. The first work plan item is to review and provide feedback on the SFO strategic plan, development plan, and noise action plan. And this is to include environmental justice in the feedback. Currently, we have that as ongoing, and let's bring that topic to discussion.
Okay. I'll open it up if anyone have any thoughts or comments or questions. Member Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Hindi. I just have a clarifying question for right now. Is when you're referring to airports, airport and airline operations, are you only speaking about our airports, our large airports? Are we talking the small airports as well?
This just addresses SFO.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any raised hands or anyone would like to speak on this. I don't. Okay, Gene.
Yeah, just real quick, I was wondering if because this relies on the airport to, what the status is of their strategic plan, development plan, noise action plan, right? So they were recently updating that, but are they updating it again this year? Is it a continually updating thing? I think that's why this was on here, because it was in process of being updated. So I don't know, Bert, if you have any knowledge of
It's
that.
a continual thing, and plan was to present in August.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bert. Member Schneider.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at number 15. So the ground-based noise study is one thing. The other parts of that, and I believe Bert is working on that, was the inclusion of C-weighted noise in the regular director's report. And there's some other little pieces that might, without getting into the details, might come forward. For example, and this might fit better with the first goal, if we could encourage airlines and or require airlines to use gates when they're loading between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., that they use the gates that do not point their APUs at the sleeping neighbors just across the freeway from the gates. Would that fit in this category? That's sort of the ground operations. It's always funny when I went back and reread the original charter and things like that, the surrounding communities, the term surrounding communities was the close-in communities. So now I think on ground-based noise, we're trying to use close-in communities to differentiate from surrounding communities on there. And this one is kind of doing both. It's the big picture surrounding communities. But frankly, we've spent most of our time that I've been on the roundtable with surrounding communities and not so much on the close-in communities, the way the roundtable was originally structured. So that's just my thought on 15. Doreen, if you agree, Doreen and I can work on some language that maybe broadens it beyond the study. I mean, the reality is the airport didn't like the outcomes of the study. The study says, well, plants don't do as much as we might like, but we only looked at 20 feet as opposed to 200 feet, until there was some time to actually dive into it. It's been hard to do anything with that study, especially when our partners don't like the outcomes or didn't like the framing of the study. So that's just my thoughts on how to get this to where we might actually accomplish something for closed-in communities.
Would that fit under the recommendation to the membership on the next step, or
mean,
that's some?
You mean in number 3 or?
I'm talking about including the C-weighted noise in the director's report, or is that something?
Well, I
you
think
wanna
that's
bring?
already happening, Bert, right? You're trying to figure out how to get it in. You talked about it at our last meeting. It'd be nice to get a tiny win. Any kind of win for all of us on the round table is a good thing. I just think I don't want to keep it just to what's coming out of the spectral analysis study when there could be other small changes in operations that could make a difference.
We're
To be
working
honest,
on the,
just getting the FAA to recognize closed-in communities and C-weighted noise and moving it forward in that process is huge, but that might fit better under the legislative goal.
we're working on the C-weighted right now, as well as the ANEEM, getting those into our director's reports. First have to get it into our ANOM system where we can regularly see it. The vendor's close. I, in fact, had a discussion with them yesterday about it, and we're looking at being able to display that here soon. They have it where we can do queries on it. It's not readily visible in our tables, but we should be there soon.
So Bert, that work that you're doing, where do you think it best fits under the goals? Because if you think it fits somewhere else, I'm happy.
I'd have to look at the entire list to
Okay.
see where we
So
want to put
Doreen,
it.
maybe the comment is just try to see where the ANEEM discussion, the C-weighted discussion, and the director's report, which for those of us in the closed-in communities, better reflect what we're experiencing, what the residents here are experiencing, where it might best fit in these goals. Chair, would that be acceptable?
That is fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bert.
Sure.
And I think the term is close-in communities, but please correct me if there's a better term for it. And what's being used around the world for the close-in communities.
Okay.
All right, Doreen.
So there was, I'm sorry, going back to the first item under that goal, was there any comment on that, or we're just rolling that over?
I do not have any comments. If anyone has comments, please raise your hand or speak. I don't see any.
Okay.
It's just gonna, thank you.
Perfect. The second item under the work plan is for the Roundtable Technical Working Group to actively work with SFO on the ground-based augmentation system to provide feedback on the GLS approaches and associated noise evaluations and the community flight procedure package and the plan for community evaluations in the innovative GLS approaches. I have that complete, but I guess it's actually ongoing as far as the monitoring for the
Yeah, I'd say it's ongoing and it
implementation.
will be in a reporting mode.
So maybe we, instead of actively work, will monitor.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to suggest is, again, it's not an action necessarily because it's going to be a while, I think, until something comes back to the roundtable for evaluation. Correct, Bert?
Correct. The FAA is, in fact, from the GBS meeting this morning, they just are getting their scratch pad entries where they'll be able to help us track it. When the Jepson charts were released, United management pilots had said, yeah, go ahead and put it in as an alternate if you get a visual, so you have a stable approach. But the thing about it was their Jepson didn't release it to the entire fleets. And so the management pilots had to let Jepson know, yes, our fleet is capable, go do it. And so the concern right now is the airlines need to all do that. So we hope the numbers will be coming up soon. We'll be seeing the reporting of those numbers.
Okay,
Okay.
I think that reflects what needed. Anyone has any different opinion or something to add? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on.
Right. Goal 3 is to lobby for aircraft noise reduction. Lobby for aircraft noise reduction in sponsoring legislation and research. The action item was to actively monitor, review, and oppose or support legislation, research, and or aircraft noise reduction programs to achieve measurable noise reduction in our communities. The first item under the work plan items was to receive regular reports from NOISE, a national organization to ensure a sound controlled environment regarding federal legislation and action. This is ongoing. NOISE, Emily Tranter, who's the executive director, will be presenting at the legislative committee on the 25th, next Wednesday. And I did meet with her last week to verify what exactly NOISE was supposed to be providing for the airport. And she said that she was supposed to present twice a year and then provide any legislative updates as they come about in Washington.
Okay, thank you. Anyone has any thoughts or comments? Anything need to be changed, amended on this?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Mr.
I
Perkins has
see
his
Brian.
hand.
Yeah, Brian has his hand up. Brian.
I just want to comment that the FAA reauthorization is every 5 years, and I can't remember, it was, I think, within the last couple of years, but that is the moment at which anybody has a chance to make any meaningful changes to federal law on the subject of noise. So it's important for the roundtable, frankly, to always have on its list of things to do the possibility of changing, because even though it's 5 years off or 3 years off or 2 years off, the education process of existing members in Congress should be ongoing. You don't create all of the necessary coalitions all at the last minute. You really have to work on it constantly. So I just want to put in a pitch here that something like this always be on their list of the roundtable's list of things to do.
Member Schneider.
Okay, let me make sure I understand this correctly. In California, Title 21, Public Resources Code, Title 21, is a state issue. Now they use the parameters that the FAA uses, which is again why they don't include C-weighted noise. So what I would like to add at this is that we not just keep an eye and advocate for legislation or funding at the federal level, but we also look at the state level. California is very well known for doing our own thing and pushing the environmental boundaries. And if the FAA will not look at C-weighted news and will C-weighted noise and won't use it in the criteria that the states are using then for setting up the same measurement of noise, we have a problem. So I would like to see us monitoring and working with whatever state agency, and I don't know who it is right now, monitors Caltrans and Title 21, right? It's Caltrans that the airport sends its Title 21 reports to. Did I get that correctly?
Yes.
If not, please correct.
That is correct.
Okay, so
It
I would
would
just like to
be-
see us not just look at the federal level, but look at the state level.
It would be the Caltrans Division of Aeronautics that the county of San Mateo sends our report to.
So, Anne, I'm sorry, but I'm not sure I understand. What is it that you want the SFO roundtable to do? Is that something different from what the county is doing on the Title 21? Could you help me understand a little bit better?
I'm not sure I can, Chair. I will try. So in the last 6 years, Title 21 has come up more at the request of the public members on that, but it is a measurement of noise. I can tell you what happens here in Millbrae, where we are in a way somewhat unique with how many different transportation agencies come in, and each one of them measures noise in their own way, or the particulate pollution that's related to noise. And at least in the Caltrans effort, it is Title 21. And as long as each entity, and I will put Managed Lane as a separate entity from Caltrans, even though it is Caltrans, they each do nothing to mitigate the impacts of noise in a community like mine, where they are all here and they are all within several hundred yards of each other. And each one can point at the other and say, hey, it's not us, it's them. The end result is we get noisier and noisier and noisier. So I think the very beginning of, I think coming that I work in the environmental field, we all tend to be specialists in our own areas. I think the world is more complicated than that, and we can't remain in our individual silos. But part of this is more what the airport does with Title 21 requirements, how they're reported out. And then do we need to change California to recognize that low frequency noise exists?
Okay, thank you. So
I
just want to
I know
make
I
sure.
didn't explain that just well. That's why I think we either dive into it at the ground-based noise level, or we dive into it at the legislative committee level. Or
Yeah.
maybe even working group level. I think we talked about the best place for a NEAM would be to come into the working group where, because it's not just ground-based noise, a NEAM on that, but it's where these things go and how to get California to truly reflect what people really are hit with.
Yeah.
And it feels
No.
like a physical hit.
Yeah, I just want to make sure what you are asking is relevant to the roundtable, right? It's not something.
Well, the airport
that-
has to report out on Title 21 items.
Okay, let me hear from Gene. Gene has his hand up. Maybe he could add some color to this.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is what I'm hearing. I think similar to what Brian Perkins recommended, that we track and keep track of FAA reauthorization, and that's we should probably also be tracking other federal legislation that's being proposed and lobby the federal. I think what Ann is suggesting here is that we do the same on the state level. That's all. I think it's just that we do have a state regulation right now, which is Title 21, but there are possibilities, and I think what Ann is getting at is that there are possibilities for California to make changes, even if the federal doesn't, that could support the actions of the roundtable.
Through the chair, that's perfect. Well said, Gene.
Well,
Thank
then
you.
that's wonderful. Happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we could add that, Doreen, please.
Yep.
And then, okay, anything else? Anyone else got anything on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along.
Okay. The other items are very similar in this, under this goal, which is to actively monitor activities from the Quiet Skies Caucus, to lobby and advocate as needed, and to work with our congressional delegations to help develop and pass noise-related legislation.
And I think what we just heard, Doreen, is that all of those last three, well, the last two, not the last three, last two could be state and federal, be
Yes.
added to those.
Perfect. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
All right, goal 4, I just want to point out we have 30 minutes left. Goal 4 is the airline award program. The action item is the roundtable will report to its communities the Fly Quiet program compliance and measurable improvements in compliance year over year. The work plan item was to receive noise office presentations on new plan, provide feedback, and recommended needed revisions. I have this as ongoing. Bert, this is in the process of being reinstituted. Is that correct?
It has been. We've put them up on the website, and I guess all we need to do right now is provide the last 2 years of chairman's recommendations to the roundtable, as well as the numbers for the and the winner of the quietest flyer and the most improved.
Okay. Anne?
Thank you. This is more of a question to the airport again, and I am being very specific to the close-in airport, the close-in communities, but it could be gap departure too. Would the airport consider giving an award to an airline that moves its flights that typically take off between 10 p.m. or realistically 11 p.m. and 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe 5 o'clock in the morning? I understand all the commuter flights going out at 5 and 6, you know, because it would be lovely if more of them really tried to get out of here by 10 p.m. It would allow people who live underneath these flight departures to get a night's sleep. And if there was a way we could start rewarding those airlines that recognize that that's an issue, that would be a lovely thing.
In a way, the program does, based on your time of day operating, your preferential runway use, gap departures, things like that. We've seen, the best example I can give you is Qantas. For years, it was just a 747-400 going to Australia. But
and it was the worst, if I remember from the
after
reports.
11 p.m. And that was their only flight, the heavy airplane, a gap departure, low climb. And so that was all they had going. And it was very poor scoring flight. And then all of a sudden they decided they can make some more money by going to Vancouver midday instead of letting an airplane sit. And so they did that. And boy, they came out of the basement and they started scoring well and doing real well. In fact, I think they got the most improved for doing that award. So in a way,
Bert,
yeah.
My apologies, Bert. My apologies for interjecting. And we could definitely get into the weed of these kind of specific awards and program, but just in the interest of time, and I really would love to leave some time for the public comments. If we could move on and just keep it at high level.
That's fine.
Really
That's fine. I think I'll just put it as something on the ground-based noise to look at it. It's more, it's carrot stick. Got it. Go ahead, Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate your cooperation. Okay, Doreen, go ahead. You're muted, Doreen.
Sorry. Goal 5 was to address community concerns, focusing on San Mateo and San Francisco counties, continue to actively respond to community concerns regarding aircraft and airport noise issues. The action item was to provide the forum for communities to voice their concerns and give their input, to educate community members about FAA, SFO, airport, airlines, and the Roundtable roles and responsibilities. The first work plan item was to revamp the website. And I will have that as ongoing. I know that it has not been completed. Is that something that we still are interested in and want to see move forward?
I'll open it up. Let's hear from anyone who has any comments or thoughts.
I think it's an important goal to keep in there.
Okay.
I do too.
Thanks, Darren. Anyone else? All right.
Perfect. The second one was to conduct an annual report of accomplishments and celebrate the Roundtable's 40th anniversary. I have that as complete, but I don't know if there was something you guys wanted to do above and beyond, because I know everything was kind of subdued because of the pandemic.
So Linda was probably more involved in this than anyone else, but I'll open it to Linda or anyone else for that matter if they have any thoughts. I know Chair Ortiz had planned on something, but then with the pandemic, everything got derailed. Anyone has any thoughts on this?
Well, I think that we need to still do the annual report of accomplishments. I think the celebration of the 40th anniversary would be something we could do or not do, but I think at least the annual reports of accomplishment needs to stay.
Thank you for pointing that out. I was more like focused on the 40th anniversary, but thank you. That's obviously important what you mentioned, the annual report.
Definitely.
Okay, anyone else?
And then the third item was to analyze noise monitor methodology and make recommendations at the local, state, and federal levels.
That's definitely ongoing.
Member Taylor has her hand raised.
Member Taylor, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair Handy. And just wanted to clarify, this is for both departure and arrival flights?
The report or the analyzed noise monitor?
Both.
I would imagine for both. Departure and arrival. I don't think there's any separation in this, whether arrival or departure, right?
No, sir, there wouldn't be any separation.
Yeah,
Thank you for clarifying.
no problem. Thanks for your question. Okay,
All right, I don't have any comments or anything, so I guess we will roll over everything in this section. Should I keep the 40th anniversary item, or do I line that out?
I don't know. I wasn't too much involved in this, so if someone was involved and have any thoughts, I do welcome them. If not, not much really we could do. I don't know, depending on when we're gonna be back in person, because that's really, if you want to have to do something, it has to be in person. And I think Chair Ortiz at the time, he had interest in, I don't know, I don't want to speak for him, so we'll reach out to him and ask him. But Linda?
Yeah, well, just, I think when we were going to do something in person, I think we had talked about possibly using the nice museum in the airport. I mean, this was, in the before times. So maybe we steer our sights towards the 45th anniversary and plan to do a celebration at that time. The other idea would be just next time at such time as we have an in-person meeting to, do something much more low key, like, cake and acknowledgement or something, if it's the will of the chair and the membership to do that, or like I said, just steer attention to the 45th.
I would say we passed it, the 40th, so let's look forward to the 45th, unless someone has different opinion.
That makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Linda, for the suggestion.
Okay, moving on to goal 6 is to improve the roundtable effectiveness, which is to increase roundtable effectiveness with inward focused member education, support, and mentorship. The action item was for the roundtable to make an ongoing effort at strengthening the membership by developing a mentorship program, creating a new member packet, and translating technical jargon. The first one is to conduct Noise 101 training. This is obviously ongoing. Our next Noise 101 training will be in June. But I do think it's important that this item continue for any new members or any members that just need a refresher.
I think those are good goals to keep in there.
Yeah, and I think I have that one as complete, but I think, with new members coming, the whole mentorship is probably a good thing, and maybe that should be ongoing as well.
Yeah, I think probably the complete was meant for those for the past year, but it should be definitely ongoing.
Yeah, so you just have to change the create a member packet to something, to maintain onboarding, supporting the members or whatever.
Okay, Member Schneider.
This will seem a little weird, but because especially now the public that attends are very well educated on the issue. But Millbrae will be doing our own series of meetings with our own residents to help them understand what's going on and what some mitigations might be. And I'm not sure we've got the bandwidth because we're still in a COVID year, but coming up with, it might be an update of the website, but helping our residents know what we have the power to do and what we don't have the power to do, where they can go to get more information, basically easing the public in. We all shared the frustration they all had when Next Gen went in, and how little control we had over that. So something more targeted at the public, helping them understand. We all know, we elected officials, we know how little the public really understands budgeting and why we have to do this over that. We just have to. So something along that line.
Would that be something that would be to create a public, I won't say a packet, but a information sheet where all of those resources are together for the public to download or to for cities to hand out?
I think that's a great suggestion, a great start too.
I'm wondering if we actually combine that with the updating of the website, have those materials maybe available on the website. So add
That's
the
what I was
training
thinking as well.
material.
Yep, those are my thoughts as well. Go
Okay,
bring it up
I'm
there.
happy.
That would be good suggestion for that goal.
I think it'd be good to have that in there, that, to make public participation more effective.
Okay.
For our members.
More effective, and it's a very frustrating thing, and how to help them with frustration.
Okay, so speaking of frustration, and sort of going back, I'm not sure I see any new goals that are specific to departure noises. I know we're going to still be working on the newly implemented changes and monitoring how that goes. But, we in the departure areas that are really impacted by departures, sort of said we'd wait our turn until ground-based noise got finished, or not finished, but more established, because I don't think they'll ever be finished. So I don't know if that's something we're working on, just a one-year goal, or is this supposed to be a multi-year?
So this was, I think, just kind of a check-in, making sure that basically update what we have for this year. That at least was my intent. Definitely next year we have to revisit and fine-tune it again and adjust according to what has changed and what new challenges present themselves, or for that matter, do we need to direct resources, some of the resources or more resources towards departure, or anything else for that matter.
This is for the next 12 months.
Okay.
Through the chair. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What I've tried to do with ground-based noise is embed it in each of the goals where it's applicable. But I do know that in the past, the roundtable was organized as an arrival group and a departure group. Do you want, and departure cities have been they've been just as said, they've been very patient. Do you think that every other working group or every working group should have an agenda item specifically for departures? What would be the procedural way of bringing that up, moving it up the priority list?
Well, I'm not really sure on that. I know that on our agenda, we sort of made it where we could have 3 standing topics, arrivals, departures, and ground-based noise. But I'm not sure where that information would be, what information would be able to be given if we don't have any specifics that we're working on departure noises. And certainly, we have departure issues, and especially when the wind's blowing, it's pretty bad where we are, but I just would like to, I'm not sure where we could put in that shows that we are looking at that or have a goal to go along with that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Terry. I mean, just to be clear for me, I mean, the noise is a noise, whether it's departure or arrival, we have to deal with, right? So there's no distinction in my view, or none takes priority. It's not like about just departure. It's not just about arrival. It's all of it. So what do you suggest, Terry? What is it that you think would be ideal that we could address departure in a way that you are advocating for?
You know, I'm not even really sure that I guess I just don't want to be put off for having a technical working group indefinitely for departure noises, where we tend to be really focused on in our technical working group and our meetings, where we're getting so much pushback from the southern communities on arrivals, that we're spending a lot of time on that. And the ground-based noise is working mostly on the ground and the airport noises, although takeoffs are part of that. And I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight that departures have their own set of problems. And I'm not sure how to work that into the goal. I mean, goal 1 mentions arrivals, departures, and ground-based noise, but there's no real work plan or action right now on that.
Understood. Let me hear from Jim. Perhaps you got some ideas and some clarification.
Yeah, I think Terry, you kind of nailed it, actually. I think what you do is bring it up in the technical working group, and then if something comes from that that should be put into the action plan, you know, that's when it gets added. Because what's in the action plan right now under goal 1, thanks for scrolling up, Doreen, is focus on all aircraft procedures, right? Including arrival, departure, and ground-based procedures. And actually the first work plan item is a departure item. And so if something comes from the technical working group that rises to that level, Terry, then I think it, you know, let's earmark that and let's make sure it gets into the work plan. Because what I'm hearing right now is there's no specific action necessarily that you're recommending, but that you don't want to lose sight of the departure noise.
Right. I mean, we have a pretty active community here. And it almost, I mean, while it may not be a work plan item yet, it may be that on goal 1, item 6, that working with technical consultant, the roundtable will evaluate options for nighttime arrivals and departures.
Right, exactly. And I don't know that we're there yet, but if there is something specific like that, and maybe what we do is maybe you're, because it's not right now, number 6 is specific to arrivals on 28 right and 28 left, and I think we figured out what the specificities were, but
Okay.
or the specifics. But anyway, so I'm not thinking it would be appropriate to dilute number 6 if we want to add a one in there for, you know, just looking at nighttime departures. Maybe that could be something.
Yeah, I think, and what I suggested is, if you look at that, it's nighttime operation, which includes all operations, departure, arrival, and ground-based noise, and specifically at night, right?
Specifically at night, although, you know, we get a lot of airplane noise day and night here in Brisbane.
No, I understood.
It's an ongoing problem, and I don't know if it's just been me, but it seems to have gotten worse in the last month, but that's probably just the wind.
But I think the chair raises a good point. We could add right now, because I think there is enough interest in really focused on the nighttime, in having a work plan that focuses not only on the night and hush and the 28 right and 28 left, but actually have one that looks looks at all operations during the night and finding ways to reduce the noise from those operations.
Okay, I would just like some little blurb in there so that we know we're not forgetting it.
Yep.
Thank
Through
you.
the chair.
Yes.
Completely support Terry in that I would have gone a little bit farther and added reverse flow, because with the fires, that triggered more reverse flow operations. We're hearing a lot more reverse flow operations, but if we start with nighttime, maybe we can get a win there. You know, at least try to avoid the flights over San Bruno, Daly City, and Brisbane. Although I was coming down 101 yesterday, Terry, and I saw a flight in the middle of the day coming over an odd way over Brisbane. So there's still these weird things. It was a departure, but some weird things that happened, why the plane was that far up when it made the right turn. I have no idea.
I see a lot of weird departures from here.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first time, and it was just yesterday. It's like, wow, what is it doing there? So maybe there's something we can get our hands around.
Thank you. All right, Terry. Well, I think Doreen just added.
Yeah, I'll work
number 8.
with Terry on some verbiage for that.
Very good. Thank you. All
Mhm.
right. Anything else? All right, well,
Just wanted to point out we have a little less than 10 minutes left if we would like to switch over to public.
Absolutely. Let me, before I do that, just a final comment from anyone. Just want to make sure everybody got the chance to say their piece. Okay, I see none. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open it to public comment. Angela, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Give me 1 second so I can share my screen and get the timer. I do see 2 hands raised. I will first call on Mark Scholl, followed by Darlene Yapley. Mr. Scholl, please accept this request, unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. Just reflecting on a couple of things that are said. One, and I've said this before, I really wish there a way that the public could do more, provide more substantive input into some of these programs other than just sort of comments after the fact. But with respect to a number of things that are talked about, one of the things that strikes me is just that if you look at the NAC approved major projects for SFO, a lot of them have to do with some of the things you all are trying to do something about. For example, one of the .308 procedures are changing how arrivals approach the runway and for replacing horizontal separation with vertical separation. This is going to have an impact, and it's something I think that the roundtable should be part of the plan and studying. There's a program called MARS, which is multiple airport route separation, which is designed to coordinate between 2 airports, arrivals and departures. SFO is one of the airports this is being focused on, but for 10 arrivals during rough weather. But it's the same technology that would allow, for example, night hush to be extended to 24 hours a day, because it would allow PBN level separation, not airport level separation between the 2 airports. With respect to ground-based noise, the AEDT, the new model, unfortunately does not include C weighting. But an interesting thing was the National Academies was asked to test it and evaluate it. They did it at SFO, and those studies are really, I think, really have a lot to do with ground-based noise. I think ground-based noise should be looking at new technologies like active noise cancellation instead of passive insulation. There's just so many things I think this body could do, but I just wish there were ways we could get some of these ideas to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And I appreciate the input. I really do. And if you have anything more, but you could see, it's really not that I don't want the public to be more participating, but if you could see how the time is, and you've been at this meeting, and we have certain time that we need to work with, and that's the only reason. Not that I wouldn't want the public to participate. I would appreciate if you or any member of the public have anything that they would like to submit to us prior to the meeting. Perhaps we could include that in our conversation and our discussion. That would be helpful to us. But again, thank you. And if you have anything more to add, please raise your hand again, and I'll bring you in if you have not finished your thought. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Scholl. And I now only have one hand raised, and that is from Ms. Darlene Yapley. Ms. Yapley, please accept this request, unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you for making the work plan meeting open to the public. It's much appreciated. My first comment is, Chair Hindi, you mentioned in goal 1, we may want to include more procedures. And I think Bodega East and Bodega West, the split on that usage, that problem has kind of come in and out of the work plan. It seemed to have dropped, but I think that that is an important one that affects many cities on the peninsula. The second item is regarding the GBAS item. I think it's a little bit more than monitor. And the reason why is the motion that was passed on April 6th said that the roundtable would develop criteria for decommissioning of procedures where noise impact proved to be higher and reports rendered on a regular basis. This criteria is paramount to make sure that both the overlays and the innovative approaches do not increase noise levels over residents. This is not just Palo Alto. This is the entire peninsula. So the decommissioning criteria should not just be SFO to FAA notification, SFO to public notification, but more importantly, it should be equally as important as decommissioning criteria of the roundtable or impacted communities to SFO. That's not a passive activity, and all of the details have not been determined. At the San Francisco meeting on April 25th, they said the airlines do not have a consistent way to identify GLS approach utilization, especially under visual conditions, which were stated about 85% of the time. They may have tools, the FAA, but it works 2 months in arrears. And SFO is working with the airlines to identify supplemental methods, but this is far from being complete. So I completely respect that you don't want to take a lot of time, but it can't be passive. And I think we in the community will do whatever we can to help out ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you, Chair. And we do not have any more hands raised for this item.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, if anybody has any final comments or thoughts that they didn't think about earlier, that would be the time. And
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy with the work plan. I'm thinking about the public participation in it. Historically, especially ground-based noise and ledge committee, which hasn't met all that often, we try to be more casual and really do want the public to participate in the discussion, not just their 2 minutes or 3 minutes on that. I'm not sure if we are even allowed to do that on protocol. The problem with ground-based noise is we've had so many agenda items that were scrunched into that time period. But maybe we could look at the working group, the ground-based noise and the ledge group, and figure out if protocol-wise we can allow more back and forth with the public. Many of them, Mark and Darlene being excellent examples, they're so well versed in the issue, we learn from them. The full roundtable is tougher because that's really just sort of reporting out, and it's not the place to get into discussions. But I'm happy to beta test ground-based noise to figure out a process that allows much more public participation. I want it.
Well,
and
yeah,
we
well,
need it.
thank you. No, thank you. I definitely agree that, and I value the participation of the public. They certainly know more than I do. So for fact, that's a fact for me. But it is really the time constraint for me, at least. But if we could find the time, I'm happy to do so. But what I suggested, if they could submit to us prior to the meetings, we could definitely include that in our discussion, and we'll create probably more robust discussion if they have information that we are not privy to, or points or suggestions what we did not think about. But with regards to the comments made by Mr. Scholl, I would like to know a little bit more about the 0.308 variable approval. I'm not familiar with it. If Jean or Doreen at the next technical working group, we could talk about that, or even the switching from horizontal to vertical approaches. I think that he mentioned. I do not have any information on that as well. And with Darlene's suggestion, Bodega East and West, that's something we also could take a look at in the technical working group. Thank you, everyone. If no more comments, I see Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Hindi. I'll make it really quick. One is I'm supportive of Member Snyder's statement. The second is I am supportive, if it's still possible, to have GPAS as ongoing as instead of completed. Thank you.
Is that basically, I mean, because definitely I think Darlene raised a good point as far as developing the criteria to decommission if a procedure does create noise, more noise than what's happening now. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
And GBAS was changed to ongoing.
Okay, very good. All right, so that it is ongoing, so we will focus on that item, that developing criteria for decommissioning a procedure. Very good. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.